Mitchell.
Chair, it's wonderful to take a call in part 2 of tonight's bill. Parental leave and employment protection, 6 months paid leave and work contact hours amendment bill. And I have to say, mate, you were putting a glass eye to sleep with that speech. But let's just try and bring some context back to what we're here to talk about, which is the extension of paid parental leave from 22 weeks out to 26 weeks, sir. And what I'm hearing over there, although it's a bit of fluffery and a little bit of pokery, is that the government would like to support this because they can see the sense in it. But you know what? We just can't quite afford it at the moment. So this is what the discussion is all about. Yeah, we're right on the mark, aren't we? Except you're not very good at articulating that tonight, and the National Party just seem to be fighting over a chip like seagulls, mate. So let's try and sort of put it very clearly. The reality is it is going to cost around about $100 million per annum to extend paid parental leave out to 26 weeks. Now, if I look at that, $107 million, I think somebody's given me the nod for, but yeah, we all agree it's around that $100 million mark. And I think the honourable member, Ian Lees-Galloway, does make a very valid point. That building up to the election, we were talking about tax cuts that we no longer could afford, and they are likely to be on the table for next year. 0.03% of the tax cuts that are being put forward for next year's budget is more than enough to pay out on $100 million of paid parental leave. Now, you might not think that that's enough money to find, but if you go back through the coffers of the National Party's decisions and the government's decisions over the years, sir, you will see that when times are tough, when we had a global financial crisis, this government that sits across from us today and say we can't afford $100 million a year found $1 billion to bail out their South Canterbury finance mates. $1 billion when times were so tough and businesses were hitting the wall. They found $1 billion to go and do that. They found just this year $27 million when times were so tough. $27 million to do a flag referendum. They found $16 million to go and invest offshore over in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East there to build an abattoir that gives no benefit to New Zealand businesses. They have found untold $140 million to go and invest into China's infrastructure, sir. When this government decides to find money, they know exactly where to find it. What this comes down to is your mean-spirited nature and stopping a bill going forward that are going to benefit the families and our communities in this country. That's what it comes down to, Mr Mitchell, not this, well, we can't quite afford it. Now, sir, if I could just bring people's attention...
Just come back to the bill.
26 weeks, sir, that's what it's about, and the affordability of it.
And the movement to 26 weeks from 22. That's what this part is about. So let's climb into that. Get the hell out of that. Go on.
The rest of the world, and I do want to note, sir, that when we talk about the OECD, when it suits, the government are the first people to jump up and say, OECD figures show that we're at the top 4% when it comes to jobs.
It doesn't really sound much like the part we're talking about.
It's following, it's just in behind. It's like dovetailed like a cyclist behind a truck.
Talking about the other bit.
When we talk about paid parental leave, sir, the government say it's not of their interest. We're not interested in what the OECD is. But it's interesting to know, when you look at the 41 countries here, New Zealand is currently in the bottom 7 when it comes to paid parental weeks given, 18 weeks. But in actual fact, by the time you look at the average payments, the average payment rates of all these countries in the OECD, we're actually in the bottom 3 countries. We only pay out 47% of the average of the rest of the world. Now, these countries that pay out 16 weeks paid parental leave or 14 weeks paid parental leave invariably give 100% of the national average annual salary, to take home, which doubles that figure. We are still, even going at 26 weeks, going to be well behind the rest of the world when we compare ourselves in the OECD, sir. This is affordable. This is about our communities. This is about connecting our families. It's about putting priorities back into, from the government's position, into actually holding privileged positions to make sure that our families can actually look after themselves properly. We need to get back to enabling a one-family income to support itself moving forward. We need to get back to families being given the time to spend, to connect, to bond, to nurture and to breastfeed with their children. This is what this bill does. And I can't see any justification from this government's position to say otherwise.
Jan
sir.
Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak to this part 2 of the paid parental leave